I recently acquired my dream camera and it is able to do this. This is footage. This is the original raw footage, and it is able to achieve this look. Now, all of this was done using my dream camera. I bought my dream camera from over 10 years ago, 5D Mark III. And the reason I purchased this camera is for a number of reasons. One is so that I can use Magic Lantern EOS M Raw, and it is a joy. One of the things that the footage that you're looking at, I shot raw in 1080p, which I then processed using Adobe Camera Raw, which is then exported into a JPEG sequence and then brought back into Premiere. And then I applied a round of neat video noise reduction to smooth it out. And this is what I get. The sun has set, it is dark, ISO 100 at 20 millimeters on a crop sensor lens. That's why you see a little bit of the vignetting, and at f2. This is the image that I was able to produce, and I am absolutely ecstatic. Now, I don't recommend necessarily always shooting in this low light, but to know that I can actually do that, and I believe this process, this workflow, is not only limited to the 5D Mark III or any Canon 5D Magic Lantern hacked camera, but you could also do it with the EOS M or the 650D or the 700D, whichever one that you have. So the way to achieve this, especially low light footage, the way that you go about doing it is if you're already familiar with MLV app. Assuming you have MLV Raw, you're familiar with MLV Raw. So what you're gonna do is fire that up, go ahead and click on import. Find whichever footage that you're looking to essentially process. So in this case, I have this one, 1901. Now this footage, 1901, is essentially the clip that was shot exposing for the highlights. Now it might take a minute to load. As you can see, it's super dark. I've exposed for the highlights only specifically. And in the process, I just went ahead and wanted to output this. In terms of my settings on the right side, I don't like to mess with this. Although it's powerful, it's usable, I don't like to mess with it because just simply the user interface, it is so small. I rather prefer the Adobe Camera Raw setup. The only changes that I will make here is in order to address any moire, I might just choose, I was suggested on the Magic Lantern forum, it was suggested to me to use IGV instead of Amaze as the D-Bayer algorithm. So you may want to select that. And then from here, just make sure that your Cinema DNG uncompressed is selected. And that's it. You click on close, select that file, you click on export, and you select where it is that you want to export it. And once you've selected it, you select that folder and it will begin the conversion from MLV to Cinema DNG. Now, once you've done Cinema DNG, then you open up Adobe Camera Raw. You can do that in Bridge. So in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and let's go to the where the files are located. A couple of things to note, and I'll walk you through all of it. Once it's been exported to Cinema DNG, fire up Adobe Bridge, and then go to where the files are located. In this case, for the sake of this tutorial, I've created its own folder. I renamed it. It's supposed to be M101901. Anyway, so here are the files. Now, what I want you to do, and keep in mind, you're gonna have to wait a little bit, even if your machine tends to be a little fast, because what you're doing is you're gonna be loading up, in this case, we have 2,530 items, generating these previews that you're gonna be processing through Adobe Camera Raw. That's how many frames that there are. And this is like maybe a 2-minute video. So a smart way to go about it is to do it in batches, and it might be a little time consuming. The other way, which I like to do, is just take a big bite and hopefully your computer doesn't crash. And so essentially go ahead and select one, Control A or Command A, I guess if you're on Apple. Right click. I right click and it's gonna take you about 30 seconds for it to understand, oh, he's telling me to right click on 2,000 or 3,000 images at once. So it's gonna take me about 30 seconds, and I'm probably just gonna cut to right when the drop down comes in. And once it comes down, and you'll notice like the thing is flickering and it's busy, and it's like, yo, you want me to carry this? Do you want to deadlift Basically, yo, you want me to deadlift this whole load? Yes, we can do this. So, but if your computer is not able to handle processing 2,000 plus images at once, it just came up right here, then you may want to do it in batches. So here we go, open in Camera Raw. There we go. And now, probably another 30 seconds before the Camera Raw editor comes up with all the images loaded up. And so here we are. This is Camera Raw loading all the images. And why is it that I would choose this method over, say, bringing it into Premiere? Because the results are significantly better. All right, so here we go. Camera Raw EOS 5D Mark III file. You'll see all of the controls here. So essentially what I like to do is from here, just look at a few things, right? I want to maintain my highlights in terms of the color of the skies and things like that. You can go ahead and make your adjustments. So what I will do is I will maybe bump up the exposure, right? Revealing all of the information that might be in the shadows. And you'll notice there's a lot of noise, and that's okay. We're going to address that in a little bit. So from here, bump up the exposure. And once the exposure is bumped up, bring those highlights down, bring those whites down a little bit too. And you'll notice all of that information is there. I don't like to play around with texture clarity or dehazing, but you can if you want. In this case, I also want to bump up the shadows a little bit, but you'll notice how there's a lot of noise in the shadows. It's really up to you how much of that information you want to bring forth. A lot of that is going to be smoothed out in the noise reduction anyway, because keep in mind, like you started here, right? And now we're here. That's a lot of information it's able to recover in the raw file. You can't do this with MP4s. And when I try to do the same thing with Cinema DNG files imported into Premiere, I can't get the same amount of information to come forth. Maybe it's a limitation of my skill set, but when I saw that I could do it here, I'm like, you know what? Let me just stick to this. So this is the information here. Again, play with this to your heart's content. I like to bump the vibrance and saturation a little bit, bring out the color some more. I would say for details, turn off sharpening, turn off noise reduction, turn off color noise reduction. And you'll notice a lot of that comes up. If you choose to bump up the color noise reduction, this is essentially what you end up with, right? And you're messing around with the details. Actually, you may not want to do that. Let's bring the noise reduction here, and then boom, everything gets slowed out. This is, in terms of its ability to reduce the noise, this is actually pretty good, but the results that I get in neat video is significantly better. Just a quick note on noise reduction. It is advisable that whenever you do apply any kind of noise reduction, if you're working with a video file, before you do your color grade, before you do your processing, you want to apply the noise reduction first, and then you apply a color grade. Wow, tongue tied today. First you do your noise reduction, then you apply a color grade. However, in this situation, I am going to go the opposite. And the reason is because I'm working directly with the raw image file. So one of the things that you may want to consider is, that's why I'm saying turn off the noise reduction. The neat video noise reduction is, I feel like does a far better job than the Adobe Camera Raw noise reduction when you're dealing with motion picture as opposed to a single frame. So leave all of that noise reduction on. Now, you also may want to consider as you're doing your processing that you don't expose where there's not a lot of information too much, right? So in this case, I might not want to bring the shadows up so crazy high. Now, mind you, if you're not familiar with texture, if you're dealing with texture, it allows to bring it out. In this case, I would say no. You could even maybe bring that back a little bit if you'd like. And you'll notice some of that noise information is gone. Again, play with these settings, make these settings, adjust them to your liking. And then from here, I like to go to Color Mixer. This is where the power of Adobe Camera Raw to me lies, specifically in the area of luminance and saturation. So in this case, what are the areas that you want to bring forth for it to be brighter or darker? Generally, my oranges and yellows, I want them to be a little bit brighter because I'm dealing with a sunset. And when it comes to my blues and my purples and my magentas, I like to deepen them. Look at the sky. The blue in the sky becomes a lot more noticeably deep. With the greens, you can play around with it. However, I just leave the green at a, you'll notice that there's a little curve, like an S curve kind of happening here with the settings between the reds, orange, blues, and magentas, and so on. And then when it comes to saturations, you can choose which colors you want to bring out. Again, we're looking at the colors of the sunset. So I want to bring out both my yellows and oranges, as well as my blue purples, and maybe even my greens a little bit. And so you'll notice this is a very colorful image, and yet it is an image that was captured literally in the dark. This is where we started, and this is where we resulted in. And so now the next step is for you to then go ahead and you've graded your image, and you apply this grade, this adjustment, to all of the frames within the DNG file or the DNG sequence. So you basically select Control A, it selects all of it, right click, synchronize settings, and then basically tell it to do all of that. Click OK, and then boom, you'll notice it will have applied the settings all the way across the board. And it's a good idea to simply scrub through all the frames and see whether or not you are achieving the look that you want throughout. So just looking for the right frame. Okay, I do a focus. You'll notice something here. Why is this image suddenly so bright? So if you try to autofocus on the 5D Mark II, you click on autofocus on or autofocus drive while it's recording video, the exposure adjusts, and that exposure adjustment is caught. So if you want to do any kind of focusing while you're recording video on the 5D Mark II or 3 rather, then make sure you're manual focusing, or if you have any kind of follow focus system set up, then that will be more appropriate. That way your exposure doesn't change, or just don't do any autofocusing while you're recording video. And so that's why that exposure change is visible from here to here. Boom. And so this is the actual footage where the exposure is at. I got it into focus. And so one of the things that you'll notice is that, hey, you know, this area is not very bright. You can look at the histogram over here. Starting from this frame, I may want to bump up the whites and shadows, or not whites and shadows, whites and highlights. And you'll notice that that some of the reds are kind of overexposed, but that's fine. The color's all there. Maybe I want to bring out the shadows a little bit more, maybe bring out the blacks a little bit more in this particular image. And then from there, I will take that frame and I will apply it across the board to the rest of the sequence. And I just go ahead and right click, synchronize settings, and click OK. And boom, all of those settings are applied, and I click done. So once you do done, then all of the color settings that you had applied will now be updated to the entire sequence. And this might take, depending on the speed of your computer, a few seconds to maybe a minute or two. And you'll see the whole thing begin to slowly update itself. So give it a minute. With my computer, because I am screen recording and this recording, there we go. Now it's beginning to update across the board. See, boom, boom. So now you've done all of this. The next step is to export. On the left side, within the export tab, if you haven't already set up your custom export preset, you can do that. You can click on create a new preset, and then this setup is going to come up. You can adjust the name, original file location. I would say save to a subfolder and name it whatever the preset is. So in this case, I would do JPEG 4K, so JPG 4K, because I'm going to upscale the footage. And so this is JPEG. I would also image quality all the way to high, 12. And then from there, include original image size 100, resize to say 1920, 30, H 40. And then you go ahead and click save. I'm going to click cancel because I've already saved it. Let me show you my settings right here. Edit, boom, there you go. We've all of that information is there, saved to the original file location in a subfolder. Now, I want to address something real quick. You'll notice that I have a couple more presets here, which is DNG, TIFF, and PNG. Now, when you export these files, now the Cinema DNG files, each frame in its raw form, uncompressed, is about 3 megabytes each frame. And so that's actually pretty large, relatively speaking. However, if I convert that to an uncompressed TIFF file, then it becomes like 32 megabytes per frame. That is exponentially larger than what the Cinema DNG file is. Now, the reason I tried the TIFF file first was so that I can import that as uncompressed, apply a noise reduction to that, export it, apply color grade again like I did here on top of the noise reduction, and then import it back into Premiere. Didn't work out so well. Then I figured instead of JPEG, let me do PNG files, because PNG files are a lot more robust. Same idea, files were large. Each file ended up being close to 30 megabytes. And so whereas if I take a JPEG file where you take the 1080p Cinema DNG file, which is 3 megabytes a frame, export it to an up-res 4K in JPEG at the maximum quality, then you end up with about another 3 megabytes per frame image that you can then process into a video. That's why, just a quick side note, also there's an option to export to DNG. This is not the same as Cinema DNG. In my situation, when you export to DNG, a series of sequences, and you import into Premiere, it's not going to allow you to import as an image sequence, rather as an individual frame. Whereas with TIFF and PNG and JPEG, it will allow you to import it as an image sequence, thus essentially making it into a video. And so, just a side note, that's why I have these other profiles set up, because I was experimenting with it. The thing that worked best for me, which is what I would recommend, is export to JPEG in 4K up-resed. And having it rendered at maximum quality. So this whole process that I showed you with regards to bringing out the shadows and colors, and it's not just for processing images that are low light like I did here. You can also do it for regular images. So in this case, if I go to file 1850, which is this one here, which I actually do need to export, and you'll notice I've already processed these images. So one of the things is that once you process your images, you highlight all your files. Now you can go all the way down, press Shift and hold, or you can do Control A and drag and drop. If you've got multiple sequences that you want to do, but they all require the same grade, once you do one sequence, you can just copy one of the DNG files and then open it up like we did before, and then just tell it to sync settings, so that way you don't have to do it every single time. It's almost like applying a LUT. And so from here, once you select your images, drag and drop into JPEG 4K, right? Once you've done that, you click on Start Export, and your sequence will begin exporting. And depending on the speed of your computer, this might take a little while. So out of 2,300 files, this is the rate in which it is exporting. Well, in this case, with my computer, it takes about 20 to 30 minutes to export a clip. Go do something, come back, and it'll be done. Now, we're gonna bring this into Premiere to do our noise reduction. So click Close, fire up Premiere. I've already got a project already laid out over here, but just for the sake of example, we'll click on New Sequence, New Item, New Sequence, click OK, go ahead, import your file. In this case, we will import a few of them. So first one I'm going to import is the Cinema DNG for the original one, just so you can see exactly what the original one was, and bring that over, change the sequence settings, yes. This is recorded at 1080p. Now, if you want, you can always change your sequence setup where you go to sequence settings and change the resolution to 3840 by 2160, 3840 by 2160. And what that means is now your timeline will be in 4K, but I would say keep the resolution, the preview resolution at 1080p. And then right click on the file and then click on scale to frame size. So this way the whole thing takes up the entire image. And this is what it looks like in Cinema DNG when it's imported into Premiere. You'll notice there's a little bit more information and visibility in the shadows, but it looks a little bit flatter. Now we're going to go ahead and import JPEG 4K file. Select the thing, make sure you select image sequence down here. Otherwise, you're just going to import a single image. So click open. And now one thing you'll notice is the frame rate is 29.97. Right click, modify, interpret footage, and tell it to assume the frame rate at 23.97. And from here, drag and drop, and boom, there you go. You've got your processed version as well as your colored version. And you'll notice that there's a lot of noise details. From here, all you got to do is create new item, and from here create an adjustment layer, select that, go ahead and from this adjustment layer effect, the effect that you want to apply is a neat video noise reduction. Drag and drop that on the adjustment layer, and from here click on effect controls, prepare, build. And from here, it will allow you to apply your noise reduction And it is recommended that when you do apply the noise reduction, do it to the black area as such. It's a 17.2. Click on build profile, adjust previews, and boom, you've got the noise reduction set up. You can adjust the noise reduction a little bit here. So in this case, if I go to noise level, the key areas that I want to kind of look at is my color noise. I may even want to bump that up a little bit in terms of luminance, the amount of noise reduction. I might just push that all the way because of how much I am noise reducing. Now, with high level of noise reduction, there's also a loss in sharpness. So if you want to boost that up a little bit, you can do that here as well. You click on apply, and the adjustment layer now becomes the noise reduction layer. So before and after. And then from here, you just go ahead and export that into an MP4 file, and you will result in essentially what we have here. So that's really it with regards to the process for taking some really low light footage and having it come stand out and be brilliant in color. Now, let's say you don't want to do the noise reduction setup, right? That's fine too. I have here, this is one of my earlier sequences to which I was playing back a file. This is a simple Camera Raw grade. This is what it was. This is what it is. Now, can you achieve this look in Premiere? You probably could, but just the flexibility and the power that came with being able to do it at Adobe Camera Raw was something that I found remarkable, especially for low light footage. I hope you found this video to be something of value. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. Finally, I have my dream camera. This is the Canon EOS 5D Mark III, 10 years old camera. I bought it used for about $500 or just over $500. And is one of the things I'm looking to do is compare it with relation to its RAW capabilities. Similar workflow when using the EOS M6, not M6, EOS M Magic Lantern RAW, and hopefully in the near future the Canon 650D, and see how these RAW image cameras compare with each other. So that's it, guys. This is I'm really excited. There's a lot of things I'm looking to explore with relation to RAW images, workflows, just for fun. And that's really it, guys. I hope to see you soon. Take care. Again, if you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. I'll see you soon.